Hey, deserving listeners, a lot of you have been asking me for a long time to watch this TV show called Smothered and react to it. So let's get to it. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. Let's see if anything of interest comes out of my face as I watch this show.
Hello?
Hi!
Hi!
What are you doing?
I'm cooking.
My best friend in the world is my mom. We do everything together, and when we're not with each other in person, then we'll be on the phone
together.
You wearing the same shirt as me right now? What are you wearing? Are you wearing the shirt I got you? That's what I'm wearing. My mother and I look a lot alike. We act alike, we dress alike, so people often mistake us as sisters. It's so funny. I'm glad you like the shirt I got you.
We're like twins.
Okay, so right away, I'm guessing, I don't know, that people have a reaction to watching this show, that this is creepy, that it's wrong, that the mother is trying to act like she's young, or that the daughter should have her own relationships. And what I'll say is, on its face, there's nothing wrong with being really, really close to your mom. The thing that I always want to point to is, what are the outcomes? You know, we're all trying to get our needs met in life. We have a lot of needs. We have a need for shelter and a need for food and a need for play and creativity and attachment, relationships, usually romance, usually sex. And so how do we get our needs met? Well, there's a lot of different ways to get our needs met. And as long as we're not doing something that is harmful to other people, then usually it's fine. Now, a lot of ways that people can get their needs met are perceived by culture, by society, as pathological in some way. So let's look at a pathological mother-daughter relationship that was too close. Well, in a pathological relationship, meaning that it hinders the individuals getting their needs met, we might have a situation where the daughter feels like she can't be different than the mom because the mom is forcing the daughter to be like the mom. And so what needs does this hinder for the child? Well, it hinders their own need for individuality, their own need for their own freedom, their own need for their own self-esteem outside of their relationship with their mom. So that would be pathological. But in another situation, we could imagine a daughter and a mother being very close, dressing the same, talking the same, doing everything together. And they're also able to get all their needs met. They're able to have their own sense of individuality, enough anyway. They're able to be creative and fun and spontaneous, or spontaneous as I was about to say. And they're able to get their attachment needs met with each other and other people. There's flexibility when one of them wants to hang out with someone else. The other person is reasonable in terms of their reactivity to that. And everyone wins. It's a win-win. So just because something looks culturally strange doesn't mean it's inherently pathological. And one of the problems that we do as a society is as a heuristic, we will look for particular markers and we'll automatically call it pathological. We used to do this with gay relationships. We said, if it's gay, it's pathological. There's something disgusting about that. And in fact, a lot of people in the past and some in the current situation, particularly around the world, will point to gay people as pedophiles. They'll be like, if you're gay, then you're a pedophile. Because in the past, we would just quickly draw these conclusions based on limited information and limited information in our minds, ignorance essentially, and we would extrapolate from a little bit of information. So, for example, I suspect that our society has seen enough situations where parents will force the kids to be like them, and the kids will not develop and will never become independent and will always be dependent on the parents and never able to realize their own individuality in their own lives. And the parent is very coercive and emotionally coercive to that child. We can look towards movies, was Mommy Dearest like that? I forget. Anyway, at least we probably have examples of that rolling around in our minds. Well, as a heuristic, as a shortcut, what we do is we say, well, anytime we see a mother-daughter or a parent-child very close, it must mean that the child is being coerced and controlled. But that isn't necessarily true. I don't know the stats, but I could absolutely imagine mother-daughter being extremely close and also allowing for flexibility. So let's not be simple-minded and look at one particular detail and extrapolate from that in an ignorant manner. Now, maybe this, mother-daughter duo is highly problematic, and you know that because you've watched in advance of me. I haven't seen a clip from the show at all. So maybe, all y'all are saying, but Kirk, you don't understand these two. But let's watch. Let's reserve judgment until we get the data.
Jared, I just called my mom on FaceTime, and she's wearing the same shirt that I'm wearing.
The exact same shirt?
The exact same shirt.
What?
It was nice to have a little me. And then to top it off, then we even looked alike.
I love you more every day.
From the time she was an infant, I felt that she was going to be my very best friend.
I can go low, I can go.
So again, there are examples, if we think about the pathological side, where a parent will depend on a child to be their best friend. And take it from me, I've treated families and individuals who have reaped the disadvantages of that mindset in a parent. In the best case scenario, as parents, we have thriving relationships that are at our level. Relationship with our spouse, relationship with our siblings, relationships with our friends, relationships at work, at church, and they're mutual and they're on the same level. With these relationships, we can talk about our worries, we can talk about our fears, we can talk about our pain, we can talk about parenting, we can talk about all sorts of sensitive things. When we depend on a child, well, now and we consider a child to be a friend of ours, the pathological results that often happen with this is the child will be told a lot of information that they should not be told for their age. Now, how do we define they shouldn't be told? Well, if it's too much for them to handle emotionally. A 4-year-old cannot process the nuances of their mother's relationships. It's too much to handle. 4-year-olds developmentally need to believe that their parents have it all figured out, and their parents don't have any stress in their life, and that their parents are almost like gods. Now, why would children need their parents to believe that completely irrational fantasy? Because 4-year-olds are terrified of the world. They know fully well that they cannot function in the world on their own. So their fantasy of their parents as being gods actually helps them sleep through the night. As you age, you learn a little bit by little bit that your parents aren't gods. And by the time you're 30 or 40 years old, you fully realize, oh, my parents are human beings and they're just like me. Now, if you prematurely introduce that to an individual, well, one, they are terrified now because now they're realizing no one is up there all-knowing, omnipresent, omnipotent person to protect me, so I'm on my own, which is very scary. The other message is, well, wait, why did my mom sacrifice my own childhood, my own innocence, for their benefit? My parent had a need, and they denied my need for a childhood in lieu of their need for a friend. And that can cause tremendous pain in a child. So there's a lot of bad things that can happen when I hear that mother say that. As soon as she was born, I knew she was going to be my best friend, or something along those lines. Now, it isn't automatically pathological. It very much can be. On the other side, if it wasn't pathological, is just the way that she frames it. She says best friend, but she also very much knows as a mother that this is a child and she's not going to dump her emotional life on her child. She's not going to depend on a 5-year-old to listen to her troubles and pick her up in the day and, give her inspiration to move on with the day. She knows I go to people my own age or older or therapists or whoever I go to. I don't go to my 10-year-old for that kind of support. But we're best friends because we have a great relationship. We share a lot. She shares a lot with me. I share a lot with her, but only some things. I don't share every detail with her, but I might share some details with her that is friend-like. But I definitely keep the more sensitive things that a 10-year-old would be overloaded by. I definitely talk about that with other people. But she's my best friend. But I know what not to say to her. So I don't know. We'll have to watch and see which one it is.
Oh, hide the sweetest side, baby, the apple of my eye.
I made her grow up maybe a little earlier than a girl would grow up because I would talk to her about everything.
Oh my God. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. 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 Well, I mean, we'll find out if that was damaging to the kid, but that's exactly what I was talking about. You do not want to have your kid grow up too fast. That's almost always a recipe for disaster. Now, what kind of disaster is it? Well, one, your kid might not develop a fully sense of who they are as a person because they're too focused on you and not focused enough on them. And not knowing who you are can lead to a lot of bad things, a lot of lack of self-esteem, lack of knowing what you want to do with your life. You can also develop a tremendous amount of passive anger and hidden aggression and contempt and hostility towards your mother and really everyone. The reason why it has to be hidden is because they learned early in life that they couldn't express that because they would be either punished or withdrawn from if they were to exhibit the age-appropriate pushbackery. But now, who knows what she means by that? I'm going to reserve judgment until we hear from the daughter, but that is not promising to hear that. That's upsetting, and it's framed as this, ha, 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 but this is no joke, people. When you deny children their childhoods, this is awful. It borderlines on abuse. So let's continue watching.
It was nice to have a little me. And then to top it off, then we even looked alike.
I love you more every day.
From the time she was an infant, I felt that she was going to be my very best friend.
I can go low, I can go high, the sweetest side, baby, the apple of my eye.
I made her grow up maybe a little earlier than a girl would grow up because I would talk to her about everything. Maybe that's why I named her Cher, to share my intimate things with.
Yeah, not cool. There's a chance that the kid wasn't damaged by that too much. Now, we've seen the daughter is very happy. She's very happy to communicate with her mom. She's very happy to be on the show with her mom. So, that lends itself towards maybe the daughter wasn't harmed too much by that dynamic. But on the other hand, when you are denied the ability to develop your own self outside of a relationship with a mom or with a parent or anyone in your family, then you learn to bifurcate your consciousness in that on one side of your consciousness, you're very pleasant and you're very conscious of your warmth towards your mom, and you manifest that, lots of smiles, lots of foregoing of your own needs. But then this other side of yourself that has to exist in a hidden way is anger and disappointment and sadness and feeling like you're underneath someone's thumb, feeling trapped. And you don't manifest that outwardly because potentially if you do, you will either incur some kind of abuse from your parents or your parent will withdraw their love from you, which is devastating to you. And if a parent has cultivated your dependency on them alone, when you pull away from that child, the child will be very upset and very afraid. So sometimes children will learn, I just have to bury all of that anger and all of that, feeling like I'm trapped, and I have to bury even who I am as a person. And I just have to manifest smiles and niceness because otherwise my mom will reject me. Now, the daughter, Cher, is an adult now. But if you're in that kind of enmeshed relationship from day one, the fact that you're an adult doesn't mean anything, because unless you have the space in therapy usually to explore this dynamic, it's going to be hard to be conscious of. Now, I'm still reserving judgment. We really have to find out, mainly from the daughter, how she feels about this relationship and whether or not we can observe if the child is actually able to get her needs met. So what would that look like? Well, if the child had her own relationships, could oppose her mom when she felt like it, those kinds of things, maybe the damage wasn't too bad or maybe it wasn't there at all. But I'm not hearing promising things. Let's continue watching.
And I only want to play with her. I never had as much fun playing with other people.
Yes.
She would wake me up in the morning to get ready for school and say, "You want to play hooky?" And I'd say, "Yes." And then she would take me for a full girls' day. And
Okay, so again, a little strange that she is saying that as a young person, she didn't have as much fun playing with her friends as she did with her mom. The same spectrum applies. There's certainly pathological situations where that would be true, where a child isn't allowed to develop their own relationships because the mom is threatened by that. And the child learns, I can't have friends outside my relationship with my mom or else my mom's going to withdraw from me. Or I don't feel competent to make friends because my mom has socialized me in this very particular way to be friends with my mom who's older. And when I try to play with kids my own age, it never works out. So there's a possibility that we're looking at some level of mistreatment and damage there, but we'll watch to see if there's any evidence of that.
how was school today? And I'd be like, it was great. It was good. But it was our little secret. It's our little.
Okay, so we're hearing them laugh about it, and it could have been a nice thing, but I have seen, as a couple and family therapist, problems with this very thing where the mother is essentially forcing the child to align with her against the father. You heard that the daughter is like, the father would ask, how was school today? And I would, she didn't say this, but I would lie directly to my father because if I didn't lie, that would be outing my mom and disappointing my mom. So I was between a rock and a hard place. When my mother plays hooky with me during school, and then I come home and my dad asks me, I'm going to disappoint one of my parents. And so since I default to not disappointing my mom, I'm going to disappoint my dad in this situation. Now, it might have been a minor issue or not an issue if the daughter felt like she was flexible enough to move or it still preserved a relationship with the father. But if this is repeated a lot of times, it can erode a relationship between a father and a daughter because the father might pick up on the lies, the daughter might feel ashamed about the lies and might distance herself from her father as a way of protecting herself from that shame. So we're not hearing any evidence of pathology, but there's a lot of markers of potential problems that are harmful really to both people. I mean, so I've been pointing out the harm to the child, which is more obvious, potentially, but to the mom, she's also harmed because she isn't allowed to have a peer-to-peer relationship. If she is completely involved with her daughter and she doesn't have other relationships, then that it's not ideal. For us, we want to have relationships, intimate friendship, romantic, sexual relationships with people that are on our level. And we don't want to feel like we have to force someone who has less power into a relationship with us. We usually do that out of desperation. I don't know. We'll continue watching and seeing. Again, to be clear, we've only heard red flags of harm to the child. We haven't actually heard of the actual harm, if there is any.
Special alone time.
We have this connection that is very strange. We can actually feel for each other. It's like twins. Hi!
My dad.
So again, there's nothing wrong with having a lot of empathy for each other and a lot of attunement to each other's emotional state. It's just a matter of, is there flexibility for both, particularly for the daughter, to move away when she wants to and when she needs to? That's always the question.
Dad's a doctor. My husband's a doctor. She got married at 23. I got married at 22.
I love you. Nothing like having
you too.
a daughter. Cher and I have our own unique handshake. We love to go shopping. We love to do makeup together.
The longest that I've ever gone without talking to my mom is maybe a few hours. Wear something similar.
Okay, so that's going to trigger a lot of things as well. In and of itself, lots of conversations with your mom throughout the day is not pathological. There are plenty of extremely functional families where that takes place. If for you that's very creepy or odd, it's not we don't want to take a shortcut and look at that behavior and say that's pathological, there's something wrong with that. Things can look culturally weird to you, or things that your circle of people would not want to do, and still be not pathological, if that makes sense. So let's continue to, assume innocence until proven otherwise.
Wearing my black pants romper just because I know we're gonna get things dirty on it. Jared is my husband. We live in New York City together. You got that in, babe?
Yeah, I got it.
It's hard having this distance between us, for her living in New York and me living in Florida.
Love you.
Can't wait.
Okay, love you. Bye.
It was definitely overwhelming at first to deal with Cher and Dawn together, because when they're together, especially in the beginning, I felt like I was the third wheel.
We're sitting here enjoying this.
So that's another potential problem with their style of relationship, is that the husband of the daughter might feel left out. He's saying it with a smile on his face, so maybe he isn't harmed by it or that resentful. There are cultures around the world where this happens all the time, where your familial relationship, meaning, with your parents and your siblings, is considered to be much more strong than your relationship in your marriage or with your, in-laws. So there's different customs, if you will. In the United States, we tend to value or privilege the notion that once you get married, then that couple is supposed to have their own inner circle and everyone else is outside of that. That's not the only way to configure a family, and there's many ways for everyone to get their needs met. But that will be a question as we move forward as to how does the husband feel about that, and how does the daughter feel? Does the daughter feel like she can't put her husband first when she wants to? That's the key.
Day at the resort. There's Jared. For the past 7 weeks, I've been keeping a huge secret from my mom.
Very good. Definitely pregnant. There it is.
We haven't told anybody yet.
Yeah, nobody knows.
Nobody knows, not even Cher's mom.
Okay, so that's a very significant data point. Secrets or things like this will often communicate, the way that people navigate it will often communicate the inner circle and the outside circles. I'm this way with my wife. If something goes on in my life, I will always tell my wife about it. If someone tells me something and they're like, "Hey, Kirk, don't tell anyone else this." Obviously not my clients, because that's a special relationship. But if it's a friend or a family member and they tell me something, they're like, "Kirk, don't tell anyone about this because I want this to be secret." I'll say, "I will grant you that, but I have to tell my wife because I tell my wife everything, and so that's just going to happen." But my wife is very good with secrets, and so am I. So you can depend on the two of us that we won't tell everyone. We won't tell anyone about this. So what I'm saying with that to my wife is that I consider her to be in my inner circle, and I'm telling everyone else around us as well that, look, there's me and my wife, and we're in the inner circle. Now, I don't have to do it that way. There's various different ways you can do it. It just depends on your value system. That's my value system. It's a typical American value system, and maybe a value system that is common around the world in various places. But for this couple, they just found out that Cher, the daughter, is pregnant, and the couple has kept it secret. So to Cher, she is communicating to her husband, "I'm putting you first, at least when it comes to these sorts of things. And mom is second," because she certainly could tell mom about it, but she's choosing not to, probably out of a effort to do various different things. Again, this is just speculation, that she wants to value her husband. She wants to give the message, I love you and I put you first. I'm just guessing that was part of it. She also might be wanting to give a message to her mom that, look, now that I'm married and now that I'm going to have kids of my own, you're not central in my life the way you were before. Because if I'm going to build a family, me and my husband have to be a very tight unit. We have to work really well together. And I'm willing to have you a part of my life for sure. But if this is going to work with me and my kids, me and my husband have to be real tight. And we don't even live in the same state. You're in Florida, I'm in New York. I need someone right there, and that's my husband. And so I'm just going to take a guess and say that's what Cher was thinking. Of course, it's total speculation, but let's continue watching.
All right, we just finished.
Did it! First one!
It's so hard to not tell my mom that I'm pregnant because I tell her everything. And the fact that I have to keep this a secret is killing me.
So you're not going to tell your mom beforehand, right?
About what?
What do you mean about what?
Okay, so 2 observations. One is the daughter, Cher. I forget her age, but clearly she's an adult. She has a childish mode that she goes into. Nothing pathological about that. You can be 75 years old and have a childish mode that you go into. Nothing wrong with that. But it is a data point that we might build upon as we move forward in terms of saying things about what's happening in this family. The other thing we'll say, observation here, is that the husband is checking in with her. So we might learn more about this dynamic maybe in this conversation of maybe Cher is ambivalent about involving the mom in the inner circle. And the husband is very influential in saying, look, let's establish this. We have an inner circle here that your mom is on the outside of. And that's what I want, because moving forward, I want to feel like I'm first and your mom is second. It's just a guess. Let's continue watching.
I have to tell her, Jared, you know that. Jared and I are planning on going to visit our families in Florida. I'm very excited to be going home and to tell everyone the good news is going to be such a relief, but Jared wants me to keep this a secret until we tell everybody together.
I thought we said we were going to tell everyone at the same time.
I waited 7.5 weeks already that I haven't told her because I was waiting to tell her in person. She's gonna be like hurt. I have to tell her before.
Don't you think that like my mom and my dad and your dad would want to know just the same as everyone else?
Okay, so here is the crucible of the matter is that I was talking about earlier is Cher has needs, and how do we meet our needs? And sometimes there are conflicting elements on our needs. Cher has a need to be in love with her husband and to please her husband and have a good relationship with her husband, and to feel like she is being a good partner to her husband. She also has a need to feel like she's being a good daughter and following the rules that her and her mother have set forth their entire life, which is usually they tell each other, secrets as soon as possible. So right now, Cher is at a Y in the road. Does she tell her mom right away when they see each other, which would value the mother relationship? Or does she wait until they tell everyone, basically putting the mother, Cher's mother, in the same category as Cher's in-laws? You sit them all down and you tell them all at the same time. And Cher is predicting in her mind that'll probably hurt my mother. Now, Cher seems to be indicating that she internally wants to share this with her mother because she likes to share things with her mother. So I would really need to sit down with Cher. Of course, I'll never be able to, and ask her, so what do you want to do? Put your mom's wishes aside, put your husband's wishes aside. What do you want to do? Because that's the key here. And what are your needs in this scenario? Do you have a need for a close-knit inner circle relationship with your husband? Or do you have a need that you want to retain moving forward in which you and your mom are very close-knit and your husband's just going to have to deal with that? What do you want to do? That is the important thing, because if she says to me, well, I want to grow up and I want to move on to the next stage in life where me and my husband have an inner circle and me and my mom are still very close, but I don't want it to be as close as we were before because we don't live in the same town, and I'm a grown woman now. I'm going to have my own kids, and I want to have my own family. And I want to be free of the obligation to my mom that I've had thus far. That's what I want. I don't know, but I can imagine someone in her position saying that. And then I'd say, okay, well, does your relationship with your mom allow for that flexibility? Or do you feel coerced and forced into doing one thing or the other? And if you do decide to not tell the mother right away, is there going to be a massive, unfair consequence that your mom is going to impose on you and your life? That's what I was talking about. There's nothing wrong with a mother and daughter being very close. There is something wrong about rigidity and an inability to adjust based on either one of their preference in the moment.
Cher and Dawn are so close. As the husband, it's a little bit difficult because I know I don't have the same bond that they do. Everyone is a part of this, just like your mom and you.
She only has one daughter. She's going to want to hear it first because this is the one time she's going to get to hear this first from somebody.
Okay, so Cher is making the case for, I want to tell my mom first before everyone else. And the husband is saying, but I have my parents too, and my parents might be hurt if they were told second. For the record, I wish that families wouldn't worry about this so much. I've seen families fall apart over this sort of thing. It puts a lot of pressure on young parents. And if you've been through this, you know what I'm saying. I feel like it's particular now. I feel like when I was growing up, I don't remember there being fights about this sort of thing. I feel like today it's very ceremonialized in suburban middle-class America, where there's all this thing, and it begins in the wedding, honestly. Like, weddings are more and more complicated, Well, mom needs this, and dad needs that, and grandpa needs this, and, okay, well, we're going to do this because we got to please those people, and how are we going to do this? Because that person might get upset, or do we invite someone's ex-wife? There's all this concern, and it puts a lot of pressure on people that is, I think, unfair. And right now, I just wonder if for the husband, he'd be like, under normal circumstances, so if I could talk to him, I would just be like, so if what do you want out of this? What are your needs right now? And put aside your parents, and even put aside your wife, and put aside your wife's mom. What do you want? He might be like, you know what? This is me just taking a guess based on the demeanor we've seen so far. I'm guessing he might say something like, you know what? I don't care who is told first. I just want everyone to be happy, and I don't want anyone to be mad at me. I don't care if Cher tells her mom first. I just don't want my parents to get mad at me for telling them second. But maybe he would say something like, it's very important to me that my parents get told first because that's very meaningful to me. So that's what it comes down to. And on these shows, we often don't have the opportunity to ask these questions. And that's the key, because it's not about what it looks like. And if if you're not used to this way of behaving, it's how does each member feel about this and what seems fair to the individuals.
And she's not just everybody else, she's my mom. I feel that my mom would really be upset if I told her the same time that I told everybody else, because this is something, she always would tell me, you're gonna tell me first, right? Like, you're gonna tell me before Jared finds out. This is our special time.
Okay, so I'm hearing a little bit of coercion there. So the daughter, Cher, is saying, my mom will get upset. What we're not hearing is Cher saying, I just really want to tell my mom first. You hear the difference there? Let's rewind that and listen back.
This, just like your mom and you.
She only has one daughter. She's going to want to hear it first because this is the one time she's going to get to hear this first from somebody. And she's not just everybody else, she's my mom. I feel that my mom would really be upset if I told her the same time that I told everybody else, because this is something, You know, she always would tell me, you're gonna tell me first, right? Like, you're gonna tell me before Jared finds out.
So you hear that, right? There's nothing in there that Cher is saying, this is what I want. I want to tell my mom first because that's meaningful to me. What we're hearing is, my mom's going to get upset if I don't tell her first. And I'm always hearing from my mom, you're going to tell me first, right? You're going to tell me even before you tell your husband, right? So there's this frequent pressure, and that limits Cher's ability to behave in a way that she wants to behave. Now, Cher isn't indicating that she's upset with that, but I can't imagine that being a comfortable place to be.
Oh, this is our special time. This isn't his.
So many times we get into this situation and I let you have your way, but this is one thing that I feel really, really strongly about. I'm just asking you to please, please think about it.
This is good. This is common conversation in a situation like this. I wish the husband would have said something like, it's really important to me, and I feel like I feel like this is an indication of, do you love me very much? Or am I just sort of an adjunct onto you and your mom? And that doesn't feel very good to me. It kind of hurts my feelings. I want to feel like I matter in this relationship. I value your relationship with your mom, and I love your mom. But I feel like I want us to have a tight bond. And I know we haven't been together as long as you and your mom have been together, but I want to build that life. I want to grow old with you. I want to raise kids with you. I want us to be involved daily with each other. And I feel like we're going to have to go through a transition. So I've worked with families through these transitions. We call these family life cycle transitions. And they're very important to navigate in a healthy way, because if you don't navigate it healthily, there will be problems down. I call them residuals or residue that will happen later on. So, for example, the way to look at family life cycle stages is there's various different tasks that need to happen. So, for example, when a couple comes together, one of the tasks that needs to occur and be successfully or mostly successfully achieved is bonding. The couple has to bond sufficiently. And if they don't bond sufficiently in the beginning of the relationship, and they're not quite so great with each other, when they have kids later on, if they have kids, then the stress of having the kids will cause the couple to fly apart or cause them to bicker about parenting or something like that. So the task of the initial couple is to bond sufficiently. And sometimes this means putting off having kids for a sufficient amount of time. Well, the task that they're in right now is for husband and wife to establish what it's like for them moving forward with a kid. Is mom first, is grandma first, or is husband first? Usually we want husband to be first, because husband and wife are the ones that are there on a daily basis raising the kids. Now, in another household, in another culture, you might find that this couple actually lives with the mom. And in that situation, they plan on living with the parents in perpetuity. And so in those situations, then we have more flexibility there, because the grandma will be a part of raising the kids. And so there's, some more practical options there. So the residue that could happen if these two people don't manage this well enough is 5 years down the line, the husband could still feel like an outsider. And when push comes to shove, when it comes to parenting, he might just be like, I'm out. You don't include me anyway. You always go to your mom with everything. I'm out. I'm hanging out with the boys. You can parent our kids on your own, and, ask your mom for help. So because of the residue because they have a task right now, if they don't actually, manage this task well enough, down the line, there could be big problems. Now, how do they manage this task is up to them, but there has to be agreement on, as a couple, how they want to make things look. Now, maybe she'll convince him, look, me and my mom have a special thing. You're just going to have to deal with it. I love you very much, and I always will, but me and my mom have a special thing. And maybe she'll be able to convince the husband of that. Maybe the husband will be able to convince the Cher to establish a different kind of relationship. We'll see moving forward.
I'll think about it, but no guarantees.
Okay, so I think they're moving on to another Smothered situation, so I guess I'll end that episode there. Well, I don't know if I'll do any more of these, so it depends on the response to this episode. So I will be monitoring the response because I'm experimenting with a number of different one-off reaction videos. And let me know what you think. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.